The people who have lived through the late 90s in Los Angeles may have difficulty believing the mighty Suge Knight could turn into a scaredy cat behind bars. The former executive producer of Death Row Records made his mark on the streets of LA decades ago, but it doesn't seem he can achieve that same feat while being locked up in a government correctional facility. Keep watching till the end of this video to see Blood Gang leader reveals why Suge Knight is scared in prison. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Suge Knight's arrest records. Suge Knight did not have it any other way than to be involved in the rampant notoriety on the streets of LA back in the late 80s to the 90s. Suge Knight, who used to be the executive producer of one of the biggest record labels, Death Row Records, has been in and out of prison until the 2000s. His first official prison sentence was in 1995, and he was sentenced to 5 years probation for assaulting 2 rappers at a recording studio in Hollywood in 1992. It was the 90s and just a probation period. It was not gangster behavior, and that did not really mean anything to the then music producer. Suge went further and got what he might have probably been expecting from the judge. Suge and his entourage attacked Orlando Anderson, an opposing gang member. A pending hearing on the September 7, 1996 probation violation landed him straight behind bars. Suge was then sentenced to 9 years jail term for violating his probation. The former record label boss was released early on August 6, 2001. 2 years after his release, he was jailed again for violating parole after he assaulted a parking lot attendant. He had probably found the prison as an escape to the real world, and no one would ever know. But again, in 2012, Suge was arrested in Las Vegas after police found marijuana in his vehicle and several outstanding warrants for traffic violations. That marijuana possession charge did not land him in so much trouble compared to the crime he committed 3 years later. On January 29, 2015, Suge crashed his car into 2 men, one of whom was Terry Carter, the co-founder of Heavyweight Records and a friend of his. The former owner of Death Row Records ended up killing Terry, while the second person and filmmaker, Clee Sloan, suffered injuries to his head and foot. Some witnesses claimed that Suge intended to kill the 2 men, as he was seen when he followed the pair after an argument on the Straight Outta Compton film set. After CCTV cameras had confirmed Suge was the killer, he pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter in 2018. The judge ruled his jail term to be a 28-year prison sentence, 22 years for the hit-and-run charge, and a following 6 years for it being a third strike with his dangerous run-ins with the law and violation with probation. The 58-year-old is still serving his prison sentence at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. Suge will be eligible for parole in October 2034. Hopefully, he would be fit enough to make it out alive. Suge Knight being unlucky behind bars. Life behind bars has not been favorable to Suge, as the former record label boss has had to go through one of the most challenging times of his life there. The former American football player, who appeared twice for Los Angeles Rams in 1987, had a detour in his health. It was reported that he had suffered from severe pain due to a busted appendix and had to undergo emergency surgery in 2016. His son had once complained about his father's health when he said in a video, "With all those health issues, I'm very worried about my father," he said. "I'ma be honest, because he's a strong dude, but he's human, man. It's stresses that's causing his health to be up. It's set up for him not to make it out." Suge Jacob Knight then said it's sad because he feels his father didn't deserve it, and he doesn't wish what was happening to his father on anybody. Suge later told Judge Ronald Cohen in court that he also had an abscess near his colon, which requires either another surgery or a catheter to his heart for antibiotics. The judge was not having any of his extra medical care excuses, as he told him to take better care of himself and start to work out to be healthy. In 2019, Suge clarified his outside biddings as he put a few individuals in charge of his projects. The hip-hop mogul put Ray J in charge of handling his business dealings with Death Row Records before it was purchased by his former signee, Snoop Dogg. Still, everything took a different turn the following year after his official statement. Suge had been nursing his health and doing well until 2020, when he faced another challenging situation. The hip-hop mogul was sued while behind bars. A judge reaffirmed a 2005 court order that he must pay former Death Row Records employee Lydia Harris $107 million that he allegedly never paid her. How or when Lydia Harris would get paid is still unknown, but Suge has to go to bed every night with the thought of owing a woman over $100 million. Probably he would partially settle his debt from the proceeds of the biopic book Nick Cannon has been working on. Blood Gang leader reveals why Suge Knight is scared in prison. Is Suge Knight's gangster days truly over, or is the internet just going wild over a supposed rumor? Well, there's always an atom of truth in a rumor. A former Blood Gang leader's interview has been the cause behind the latest Suge Knight's prison news. The Bloods, which happens to be one of the street gangs founded in Los Angeles, California, is widely known for its rivalry with the Crips. One of the gang's former bosses has had the opportunity to see how the former record label boss lives his day-to-day life in prison. In the interview he granted from prison, he cited how Suge has been acting scared and keeping a low profile to avoid being noticed. He said, "Talking about Suge like that, I'd like to show you that dudes be on these streets allocating this tough man facade. You really be in the pit with the homies, you know what I'm saying?"
Talking about Suge like that. So I was bringing up, I raised that point to show you that dudes be on these streets advocating this tough man facade.
He continued as he explained how men are totally different from what they used to be on the streets, compared to the vibe they give off while they're in prison. The Bloods gang leader continued, "You gotta really pull a knife out and get your man in the game checked." The news from prison turned out a little bit believable, as it had been reported that the former record label boss is in protective custody, a type of imprisonment in which a prisoner is placed in an isolated unit for either their safety or because of their high-profile status. Well, Suge Knight might be there for both reasons, because he is a high-profile person and for his safety. The interview went further when the former Blood Gang leader said Suge decided not to move along with Pyrus anymore because of fear, to avoid meeting with the wrong people. The interviewer then asked if he thought Suge was scared to come out of his cell or if he just did not want to be part of the prison gang, and he replied, he had to be scared because he didn't want to come over here with us. It's safe to say Suge Knight has lived by the sword, but he is not willing to die by the sword. Some people think it's wise for him to keep to himself while being there for different reasons. Some feel he's truly done with the whole gang stuff, while others believe he doesn't want to move with the wrong people who could harm him. That's the end of today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more content. Thanks.